सेहत की बात, ये मंच उन डॉक्टर्स के लिए है जो अपनी स्पेशलिटी सामान्य जनता तक पहुंचाना चाहते हैं। हम सभी डॉक्टर मित्रों को आमंत्रित करते हैं कि आइए अब आपकी स्पेशलिटी जिस डिसीज पर आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं उसकी सटीक जानकारी जन सामान्य तक पहुंचाइए और अपने हॉस्पिटल की सारी सुविधाएं हमारे माध्यम से मरीजों तक पहुंचाएं। अधिक जानकारी के लिए हमें संपर्क करें।
They did not have providing adult cancer care, and that survey was sent to physicians in order that includes medical, surgical, radiation, gynecologists and urologists services as well as female fertility preservation services, and the results of. So there was again another study which included that
sperms are going to be destroyed. There's no possibility in reviving those. So even if there are single sperms, with sperm breeding we have seen good survival rates. But of course the fertilization rates are a little bit poor because it's just about the quality more than the quantity at that point. Then we know that age-related decline, I don't think I want to talk about this. I think we've already, in fact, Sir's also covered this in his talk as well. Prevention strategies, again, I think it's been covered. But what I want to talk about, even Amay was talking about this, that when we're talking about oncofertility, we're not just talking about fertility preservation, we also have to think about the sexual dysfunction of the patient, the hormonal dysfunction. We have to think about complex contraception options as well. Remember tamoxifen, when they're talking about 5 years and 10 years. Remember tamoxifen is also used as an ovulation induction drug. Off paper, and I think I've used it maybe in one patient in the last 12 years. So we have to think about contraception as well as them, and fertility related psychosocial support. When we look at why fertility preservation is being underused, I think again this was covered by Prasad sir as well, that there's lack of referral services to the oncofertility clinics. I don't think we need oncofertility clinics. Our fertility clinics are good enough to handle these cases themselves. There's a poor communication between the oncologists and gynecologists. So already talked about this, that there's an inequitable access due to cost. Whatever said and done, even if it's say 10,000 or 20,000 for the oocyte cryopreservation, when we're looking at this, the initial costs are a little bit more expensive. We're looking at about somewhere between 90,000 to 1,20,000 initial cost for just the stimulation as well as the pickup process and the freezing process as well. Health literacy. People are not aware. And again, now I'll give you a very simple example of a patient. My wife is a breast cancer surgeon. In fact, she was working with Ashutosh in Tata almost for 6 years? 5 years. You left early. Yeah.
Fertility. Now that is a major issue. So it has become very relevant to talk about oncofertility at this day and age. They also think about quality of life after survival and fertility preservation. Gonadal failure. This not just affects reproductive health, pubertal development and hormone production, but also the sexual function in adults. So the scenario for today's cancer treatment has completely changed, and we need to look at oncofertility and medical oncologists, surgical oncologists, radiation oncologists, and us gynecologists. When we come together for gynec oncology, we also should start discussing about oncofertility. Fertility preservation also has grown hugely in the last 2 decades. All of the senior fertility experts must know that how well it has grown, and we are at this position in this day and age that we need just 2 weeks for a cancer patient to actually, we can actually freeze their eggs, make the embryos. We just need 2 weeks. The fertility loss related to cancer and other serious diseases now can be dealt with. So this is the take-home message from this CME. I feel that now is the time to talk about oncofertility, and of course take a negative consent. For all of the medical oncologists and the surgical oncologists, it's now necessary to have a negative consent. You must be discussing fertility options, fertility preservation options, the loss of fertility, all these issues with the patients, especially the cancers in childhood, adolescents and early adulthoods, so that they're clear on their path to fertility. So GPP, a good practice point to note, always have a negative consent. I'll share 3 problem statements of radiotherapy and 2 problem statements with chemotherapy. Radiotherapy, one problem statement being cranial irradiation. Now this is going to really damage the HP axis. So as ma'am said, she had CA tongue, if I remember, Shivai ma'am was talking about CA tongue. She underwent radiotherapy for head and neck cancer. What that must have done is really screw up the HP axis. So it might not have been the ovaries per se, but it could have been the HP axis which actually got disturbed, and there is absolutely no way to correct it now. Second problem statement for radiotherapy is the older women who present with a reduced number of follicles or a diminished ovarian reserve are a higher chance of having a permanent ovarian failure with radiotherapy. This is in contrast to what chemotherapy problem statement is. I'll talk about that in a while. But DOR, radiotherapy, not a good option. Female at 35 does not have fertility. If you go for radiotherapy, pelvic radiotherapy, her ovaries will be gone. So we need to take care of that, and especially we need to talk about oncofertility at that moment. Problem statement with radiotherapy number 3, 2 gray applied to the gonadal area, 50% follicular reserve is gone. It is that bad. So what we need to do now, that uterine or ovarian irradiation with doses more than 2.5 gray greatly increase the risk of stillbirth or neonatal death. There are very few studies, and data is still lacking about the live birth rates after radiotherapy and after chemotherapy, after ovarian transposition, after IVF vaccine or oncofertility, but surely we are heading on the right path over here. Therefore, more careful management is warranted for pregnant women treated with high doses of pelvic irradiation, particularly before they have reached puberty. Problem statement with radiotherapy number 4. Now in males, spermatogonia are extremely sensitive to radiation regardless of age. So young male patients presenting with bone cancer, blood cancer, we are giving them irradiation, maybe testicular cancer, but they are extremely sensitive to radiation, so we should be really careful. And Leydig cells, these are also very sensitive to irradiation, which can cause a low testosterone in the child and delaying onset of puberty. Now I'll come to problem statements of chemotherapy. In females, the primordial ovarian follicles, including the oocytes and granulosa cells, are particularly sensitive to alkylating agents, and ovarian failure is very common. So, chemotherapy primarily acts on primordial ovarian follicles. It destroys the primordial ovarian follicles, which is why it is in slight contrast with the radiotherapy problem statement, wherein if we already have a DOR, it's gonna go bad. But chemotherapy, the primordial follicle is going to go away. So radiotherapy cha nantar, after radiotherapy, there are better chances of having a few oocytes left than chemotherapy. Or in general, we can say chemotherapy is much more disastrous than radiotherapy for oncofertility. Presence of a rich ovarian reserve with high number of follicles in the ovaries, typically during childhood and young adulthood in females, is relatively protective against chemotherapy. This is the point I was talking about. In male patients, younger or pre-pubertal status does not provide protection against damage done to gonads by alkylating agents. So as actually sir mentioned in the same slide, it shows us the high risk, the intermediate risk and the low risk chemotherapy medications. So cyclophosphamide, ifosfamide, these are that are given that are at a high risk. Intermediate risk ACC used for breast cancer, adriamycin, carboplatin and cisplatin, whereas
आरोग्य जागृती.